Hello, and welcome to the Wooden Ball Show. I'm your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinson on Reddit and @Blinson1 on Twitter. And like always, I'm joined by my partner in crime here, Blake. He is known as @TrapMyKirk on Twitter and BTownBomb on Reddit. And today we are joined by our Ottawa Senators fan here in Daniel. He is known as Jump the Shark on Twitter and Reddit. And we have LA Kings Dave here as our LA Kings correspondent, as he's known as LA Kings Dave on both Twitter and Reddit. So how you all doing?
Pretty good.
Okay.
So,
Can't complain.
So it's been a relatively quiet week in hockey. The only really big news was Daniel Briere announcing his retirement this year for during this off season. He was part of 5 different teams, but most really known for being part of the Sabres and the Flyers. So it's a sad thing to watch him retire. I mean, I was a big fan of him, but all the best for him and the rest of his life.
He was very fun to watch in the playoffs. I will give him that.
He was a beast in the playoffs. But yeah,
Didn't he have almost a point per game during the playoffs?
I think it was over a point per game. Let me
Something
look
ridiculous.
that up quickly.
And that was over, I think, 100 games, so that's
Yeah,
pretty
he had
goddamn impressive.
Yeah, he has it's close, 116 points in 124 games.
Jeez.
So almost a point per game, but still, that's a really good number there. Yeah. He was just short of hit that 1,000 game mark though. He would have made it this year if he got another team.
He's close enough. I'm sure we can give him that.
But all the best to him and what else he does in his life. So I guess without further ado, we'll just head right into our Senators interview, which we are going to be covering first. So are you ready, Dan?
Absolutely.
Alright, so first thing we kind of want you to do is kind of go over this season that you guys had and kind of your thoughts on it.
Oh, well, what a season it was. So I'm sure
You kind of just broke up there, so are you still there?
Daniel, we lost you.
No, we lost you. Alright. Okay, Blake, you want to take up for the Kings? We'll throw the Kings right in front first, and then
Alrighty then.
right after that.
Alright then. I hope Dave isn't too thrown off by these quick changes here. I'm okay. Alrighty. So, to begin, the way it seems to go for the Los Angeles Kings, especially when looking at the two Stanley Cup winning seasons, it appears as though the Kings, they're not really known for their dominating regular season performance. Again, especially not during their Stanley Cup winning seasons. However, once they do squeeze into the playoffs there, they do damage. It seemed to me personally to be the case again there that would be happening, but alas, it seems as though the bad luck just caught up to them there in this past season, and the Kings missed out on a playoff berth. Just go over the past season. Well, to be honest, I don't think bad luck caught up to them, but it wasn't outside of their normal realm. Jonathan Quick had a pretty poor season, and we were the worst shootout team in the league. At one point, we missed 25 straight shots in the shootout. I think we went like 1-17 in overtime and shootouts, something ridiculous like that. So that's really what killed us. I mean, if we just won a few more overtime games or shootouts, we would have been in the playoffs. And so people that like the shootout, be like, it's bad luck, and people that hate the shootout are like, well, we lost because it's a skill competition. Like, we didn't get into the playoffs, but we were better than teams in the playoffs, blah, blah, blah.
But it is what it is. It's part of the game, and we were terrible at it last year, and it caught up to us. There was no creativity from the shooters. Guys you would expect to be better. Kopitar, Gaborik, Jeff Carter, all of them had their chances, and they just continually failed in the shootout over and over. They seemed to get lazy, seemed to not try different moves a lot. A lot of times they just skate down and shoot instead of actually making dekes or anything like that. It was just really, we just expected to lose it once we got to the shootout. That's just what happened. And it wasn't the goalie's fault. I think Quick actually had a decent shootout record as far as saves per shot. So it was just all came down to the shooters not doing their job. And the Kings' offense in general has been pretty porous the last few years, even though we've won. And our shooting percentage has routinely been one of the worst in the league the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm not that surprised.
Now, we'll get more to the coaching staff in a bit, but I just want to gauge somebody's opinion on this on the inside here. So it seems to me that the game plan for the Kings coach, for Daryl Sutter, is to not peak too early, I guess. Not turn on the Jets until the last part of the season. Sort of keep the players rested and whatnot. And to most people, I guess that would sound like a game plan that relies on quite a bit of luck too. So with that in mind, would the coaching have played a part in the missing out on the playoffs?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think that Daryl Sutter thinks that you need to just quietly go about your business, then ramp it up, because he had Doughty playing 30 minutes a night for the majority of the season until near the end, actually, and Jonathan Quick played 70 games. So it's not like he was resting people. Kopitar was out there a ton, too, especially when Gaborik got hurt. So I don't think it's necessarily on him. As far as shootouts go, I would have liked to have seen him change things up there and maybe switch up shooters more often than continually putting out Kopitar and Carter and Gaborik who weren't working. He did it a few times, but it just seemed like there wasn't a lot of change up there, and I never understood why. As far as line changes go, most of our lines, we were really top six heavy as far as offense goes. With Tanner Pearson getting hurt, there wasn't really much you could do as far as that goes, so you had to split up that 70s line, and they brought in Dwight King to make it the second 70s line, but it wasn't as dynamic as it was with Pearson, whose speed was definitely a plus. I don't really have a lot of criticisms for him as a coach. Maybe, aside from sitting Jonathan Quick more, especially when he was having a really rough stretch. He went 1 month where his save percentage was sub 900. So if your goalie is going through that much, there's a point where you're like, we have confidence in you and you'll get through it, and there's another point where you're like, the team needs some sort of boost, and maybe just give your goalie a mental break or something. That's the only criticism I really have, is the way that he just kept plugging Quick in there, even when he was really struggling.
All right, and that'll bring us to the unit breakdown portion now, beginning with the Kings forward group. Of course, you mentioned the big three: Kopitar, Marian Gaborik, and Jeff Carter. Jeff Carter, a member of the that 70s line, as they call it, perhaps one of the more dynamic, one of the more potent lines in all of the National Hockey League in this past season and the season before. So go over the Kings offensive unit there, how they looked this past season.
Mediocre, but that's not to be. That's to be expected. The Kings are not known for being great offensively. They have Jeff Carter is a guy that will put up 30 goals. He had 28 last season, but he's the kind of guy that can do that. Aside from that, obviously Kopitar's your best player, and he led them in points again, but it was kind of an off season. He had the lowest point total he's had since his rookie season, I think. And I know that scoring overall was down, but Gabbert got hurt, which affected the first line, which had Kopitar, Justin Williams, and Gabbert on it. And Justin Williams really didn't have that great of a season. He had really poor shooting, didn't score a ton. Dustin Brown has gotten to the point in his career where you can't expect 20 goals from him anymore. And it's making it so that it's hard for the Kings to generate a lot of offense. Like, that 70s line was really good, like I said, before Tanner Pearson got hurt. We know he broke his ankle, and then things kind of went down for them. It's not that Jeff Carter and Tyler Toffoli, who are also on that line, didn't still produce, it's just they weren't as dynamic, because Tanner Pearson might be the fastest guy on the team. It's hard to replace a guy like that with Dwight King. It just doesn't have as much skill. As far as the third and fourth line goes, just a disaster, pretty much, offensively. Jared Stoll was pretty worthless. He had an off year as well in faceoffs. He still did better than average, I think, but he just didn't show up too much. You don't really expect much from some of the other guys that you've seen in the playoffs that have chipped in at times, like Kyle Clifford. He's not a scorer. Trevor Lewis picked it up a little bit and actually had a decent season for himself. But a decent season for him still puts him third line on most teams. So we didn't really have any young guys that contributed too much. Andy Andrioff was terrible when he got to play. And Nick Shore seemed timid. He had a good season in the AHL, but when he got called up throughout the season, he just didn't really contribute too much, and it seemed like he was a little bit out of his depth, maybe just not caught up to the speed of the NHL yet. So, our offense was about as average as you would expect the Kings' offense to be, and it needs to be better going forward. Kopitar needs to rebound and have a better season. He looked a little tired at times. Obviously, he's played a lot of games the last few years, and being number one center, he plays more minutes than anybody else as far as forwards go. So maybe that's part of it, and maybe this extended offseason with the Kings missing the playoffs will recharge him and also motivate him in a way that he hasn't. I mean, this is a guy that's put up over 80 points in a season before, and he only had 64 last season. So, and he wasn't really hurt. You just kind of got to wonder, was it just because his line mates were terrible? The line mates had terrible shooting percentages, so that might be part of it. And he didn't necessarily have a great shooting season himself, so you're hoping that he rebounds.
All right, and what's your overall grade for the Kings forward unit?
Probably like a C-.
Alrighty, and now we move down to the blue line, the Kings defense. Of course, Drew Doughty, the once again the bright spot for the defensive unit. On a lot of somewhat unknowns from an outsider's standpoint, I believe. Just to go over the Kings defensive unit there.
Well, the Kings' defense really took a hit when Slava Voinov got arrested. And obviously, he was beating his wife. He just got released from jail this week. He spent some time there, but he was lost for the entire season. He was realistically probably our second-best defenseman going into the season. Jake Muzzin ended up having a really decent season, and some people might consider him the second-best guy on the team now, with Voinov having taken the year off. So when you lose a guy like that as one of your top four defensemen, it really shakes things up. I will say Alec Martinez chipped in admirably. The Kings had the fourth best defense in the league as far as goals against. And when you consider how bad of a season Jonathan Quick had, you wonder if they could have been maybe the top team if Jonathan Quick's save percentage had been a little bit better throughout the year. But with Voinov's situation, Matt Green got hurt as well. And while he's the bottom pairing guy, that's still hurt. And Robin Regeer got hurt for part of the season, too. Robin Regeer is now gone. He retired. But we had Braden McNabb, who was a rookie, and then we brought in Jamie McBain, who has bounced around a few different teams. Neither of them are that great. Braden McNabb might end up being good. I mean, he's a big dude. He's got a lot of talent, but this was his first full NHL season last year. So we're hoping that he continues to improve. Outside of that, I mean, Drew Doughty, like I said, was playing 30 minutes a night at times because we didn't have anybody else to play every situation like he does. And I mean, for what they were given and with the injuries we had and the Voynov situation, I would say that for the most part, the Kings defense put in almost an A effort or A minus. But there's only so much you can do. I mean, Doughty was a workhorse, and obviously he was second in the Norris voting for best defenseman in the league. He's going to have to do that again this season, especially with Robin Regeer retiring, and we still don't know what's going on with Voynov as far as if the league's going to reinstate him, and the team has suspended him. He's suspended from the team and the league right now, so he's not getting paid.
And of course, it's important to note, I think, at the beginning of this season, before Voynov's arrest, the Kings had 7 defensemen on their roster. Voynov is removed from team activities. That brings it down to 6. And as you mentioned, the injury to Matt Green, there's now 5 active defensemen on that roster.
Well, Green's back now, but...
Well, at the time of his injury, there were 5.
So, I mean, we brought up Jeff Schultz from the AHL for a time, and like I said, we signed Jamie McBain, who is a free agent out there. He's re-signed now, too, but, I mean, going into this coming season, our third line is Jamie McBain and Matt Green, most likely, and that's kind of scary. Matt Green is a big physical dude, but he's not fast. Jamie McBain can skate, but he's not always the smartest player. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But as of now, I mean, our top line of Doughty and Muzzin is one of the best in the league, or at least it was last season for sure. So we hope that that'll continue the way that it was. And with Voynov coming back, if he and Alec Martinez can make up a decent second line, I think going forward we should at least be okay.
Excuse me. Okay. And now we move to In Between the Pipes and the Kings goaltending unit. Now, you did mention Jonathan Quick, of course, a couple times so far. Now's your chance to give us the full recap of the season, and also mentioning that Martin Jones, who of course now is no longer with the team, but we'll get more on that in a bit, he appeared to be a capable backup there for Quick.
Well, Martin Jones had a little bit of an off season compared to his rookie season, but he was still, like you said, capable. Obviously, he got traded away, but as far as Jonathan Quick goes, just so people understand what happened, the first month of the season, his save percentage was .942. Then it dropped to .915, then to .901, then to .878. So, just through the end of December, he continually degressed all the way to that point, and just disaster. I mean, even through the first week of January, he was sporting a sub-900 save percentage in a few games. He picked it back up towards the end of the year, but the whole team kind of did as they got healthier and made a push for the playoffs. But it was just, I really feel like if he had played up to at least his average potential throughout that time, I mean, we could have stolen 2 or 3 more games, and then you're in the playoffs. I mean, it's as simple as that. The Kings missed the playoffs by 2 points, and if you get 2 victories, you're in the playoffs. And I don't feel like he stole a lot of games last season. It was one of his poorest seasons that I've seen him play. as far as top to bottom. Like I said, he had his first month and his last month were solid, really good. But aside from that, he was average to below average. And I would almost give him a D just because I feel like he really cost the team a couple games. And not just a couple games, I should say, but probably cost the team a few games just because of how poorly he played, especially when the Kings were giving up only, 15 to 20 shots a night because the Kings were the best Corsi team in the league. I mean, like I said, we were the fourth best defensive team as far as goals against. Our defense was playing well in front of him, and he's given up, 2 goals on 20 shots. It's, 3 goals on 20 shots sometimes, and those are the games that just really cost us.
All right. And lastly, we move to behind the bench, and as we touched on there a little bit at the beginning, head coach Daryl Sutter and the Kings coaching staff.
Well, as I said before, I will defend Daryl Sutter. He's a good coach. I won't always defend his staff. There's been a lot of shakeup with the staff over the last few years. John Stevens has been with them the whole time. He's a former head coach and a guy that's sticking with the team. I mean, they made him an offer to stay on, and if Daryl Sutter ever decides to leave or retire or gets fired, I would assume John Stevens will take over as head coach. But Davis Payne's our assistant coach. He does a lot of the special teams, which the Kings struggled at. We've rotated different people into that position the last few years and can't seem to find anybody to make this team good on the power play. There's times where they show a lot of potential, but the Kings routinely, whatever their system is on the power play, just doesn't work. And they constantly get shots blocked. Everybody knows what they're doing all the time. It's just boring to watch. And so I would give the coaching staff a C just because we didn't make the playoffs, and we should have. Something needed to change. Bill Ranford's our goaltending coach. He's been really good in the past. I would say this last season was one of his poorest. So as far as Sutter and John Stevens go, I think everybody still likes them and feels that they give the team an opportunity to win every night by playing the system that they do. Everybody knows the Kings system is about limiting shots, scoring a few goals, getting solid goaltending. Well, we didn't get solid goaltending, and our power play didn't help out enough throughout the season. So I would say half the coaching staff did their job, and the other half, I don't really know what was going on with them. So I'm giving them a C.
Alrighty, and that will conclude the unit breakdown and the look at the past season. Now, we move on into the off-season, first beginning with player transactions. And, of course, the Kings making a pretty decent trade involving Don Sweeney's reign of terror in Boston. The Kings were involved in that. As I pull up the trade details here.
Well, we traded Martin Jones and our first-round pick this year to Boston for Milan Lucic.
Yes. Also, defenseman Colin Miller, who I assume is just a prospect.
He's a prospect, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy. Oh yeah, we traded him. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible. I do not like this trade. I like this trade for this season, but past this season, it's terrible. This is one of the worst trades, in my opinion, Dean Lombardi's ever made. We were going to lose Martin Jones eventually anyway, so to get something for him would have been great. But not only did we give up a first-round pick, we already lost our first-round pick for next season in the Andre Sekera deal with Carolina. This draft this year was one of the deepest in recent memory. Everyone says this. It wasn't just about McJesus, and Jack Eichel. There's a lot of talented people this season. And we gave away a pick for a guy that costs right now $6 million a season. We're not paying that. We're paying like 3.5 of that because Boston is holding part of his salary. There is no way with our salary cap problems we're going to be able to sign him for that much next season. So you're getting Milan Lucic for one season. If he stays healthy and helps you win a cup, then it's worth it, obviously. But that's a big if. So we lost Colin Miller as well. And for those that don't know, Colin Miller was one of our top defensive prospects. He's a guy that won hardest shot and fastest skater the AHL All-Star game last season. He's a kid that's going to end up probably being an NHL player in the next couple of years. And I'm just like, and we lost Martin Jones, who was a decent backup and is now going to be a starter for San Jose. We didn't want to trade him in the division, and then Boston went and flipped him to San Jose, so he's staying in a division. So that didn't work out either. So, and now we got Milan Lucic, who I will say is an upgrade over an aging Justin Williams, who's basically he's replacing. As far as scoring potential, not as far as all the intangibles that Justin Williams brings, especially being clutch in the playoffs and things like that. Not that Lucic can't be, but we just I don't understand why Dean Lombardi needed to make this move. I know that we needed somebody to fill Justin Williams' spot, but it seems like we gave up an awful lot. Obviously, there's no guarantee Colin Miller will ever end up being somebody great. There's no guarantee Martin Jones is going to be a good goaltender. But it just seems like a lot to give up for a guy that you're probably not going to be able to re-sign, given the salary cap problems your team has.
Now, one thing that I'm curious to know about, one thing that I haven't heard a whole lot about, the Kings' backup goalie position. It's a continually rotating cast of characters. It seems. Just very recently, very recent history. First was Jonathan Bernier, who is now in Toronto. Then comes Martin Jones, who's traded to Boston and then flipped to San Jose, and but of course now comes Jonas Enroth. But what I want to know is what's the thought with constantly bleeding away all these backup goaltenders? Is it that much confidence that Jonathan Quick can continue to be as amazing as he was, especially in that first Stanley Cup run, or is that just overall?
Well, they're committed to him.
Mm-hmm.
You have him signed through, I think, 2019? I don't know, somewhere around there. So it's either 18 or I think it's. Let me check really quick. He is signed through. Oh shoot! He's signed through 2023. Wow, even longer than I thought. Wow, really? 2023. Wow. All right, so you're committed to him. You're not going to move him, and so you just get a rotating cast of goaltenders behind him that you're hoping will be good enough with the defense that's in front of him. The Kings, as long as they can maintain a decent defensive group, which as of right now they have Doughty, Muzzin, Martinez, and hopefully Slava Voinov, who are all between the ages of 25 and 28. So if you can keep those four guys, you're going to have some awesome defense for the next few years with whoever your third defensive pairing is, and you just maintain that, and you don't need to worry too much about your backup goaltender.
Alrighty.
And I know people are probably going to give me a hard time for saying hopefully Slava Voinov. But here's the deal. Facts are he's probably going to come back. Nothing we can do about it. He served his time in jail. You can say he's a piece of shit, which he is. That's fine. There's a lot of people that are pieces of shit that play on a lot of people's teams. It is what it is. Not like we like him, but he's probably coming back. So we just accept it at this point.
All right. And I did also mention Jonas Enroth.
I mean, it's the one-year deal for him. He's a guy that's never He's been given an opportunity on a terrible Buffalo team to be the number one guy. He performed decently at times, but there's no way he's going to take Jonathan Quick's spot. He's also a guy that a lot of Buffalo people say needs a lot of starts in order to really play well, and he's not going to get that in Los Angeles, so I don't really know how good of a signing that is, but I don't really know if there's anybody better that we could have got for cheap like that. So at least we got a guy that's fairly cheap that has some starting experience in the NHL, and I'm okay with it. I mean, it's a backup goalie. He's going to play 15 to 20 games a season.
Now, I find this signing particularly interesting because I believe Enroth has stated that wherever he wants to play, he wants to play as a starter. I mean, I would think you would probably have that thought in the back of your head, at least, that you should inherently know that if you're signing with Los Angeles, you're probably not going to be the starter.
Right, but I don't really know how many other offers he had. So there is that. There's also the fact that maybe he just wants to go to a team with a winner, and he knows that Jonathan Quick has had some injury problems. So, you know, he'll get his shot, I'm sure. He'll get a shot with a team that has a good defense, and people can see what he can do with an actual decent team instead of the Buffalo Sabres.
And other than that trade and the signing of Jonas Enroth, the Kings had been relatively quiet on the free agency, on the trade markets. Good or bad?
Well, a lot of that has to do with the Mike Richards situation. As we know, Mike Richards was originally going to be hopefully traded. It didn't work out. And the Kings decided to buy him out. But then they canceled his contract due to a situation where he got detained at the border carrying OxyContin. As of right now, the NHL Player Association has filed a grievance against the team. So what we know is that the NHLPA is going to fight this. What is currently the situation is that instead of paying his full $5.75 million per season, the Kings are only paying $1.32 per season. If the NHL files this grievance and wins this case and says that the Kings can't terminate his contract, that will jump up to something like $3.5 million per season because they'll buy out his contract, but they'll still take that hit to his cap. So Mike Richards is basically done as a King, but because of that whole situation and the Kings not knowing what's going on with him or with Voynov, I mean, Voynov's contract is like 4.2 per season. So you have a lot of question marks. So the Kings don't know how much salary cap room they're actually going to have. If the league reinstates Voynov and they reinstate him to the team, that's going to be $4 million there, and then you're looking at between 1.3 and 3.5 for Richards. So you don't really know what all you have, so it's kind of hard for them to do anything during the off season at this point.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the Kings only need a defenseman right now to fill out their roster. So if Voynov does come back, which we assume he will, I mean, he's already had the longest suspension in league history. I don't really know how much more the league can punish him. The dude's already gone to jail. The NHLPA is going to fight for Voynov at this point, in my opinion. I know that they're fighting for Richards against the Kings, but I think they're also going to fight for the Kings and Voynov against the league to get Voynov reinstated, which is going to be kind of a weird thing. Because I don't really know what more Voynov can do to say I'm sorry. I mean, the dude's already served basically a season-long suspension and gone to jail. So he served his time in jail. He's already eaten a ton of the Kings suspended him, so he's lost money too. So I don't know what more you can do if you're Voynov to say, hey, I deserve a chance to come back into the league. Especially when you have other guys in the league that have also had domestic violence issues in the past, and they did not suffer the same consequences. So it seems like we're probably going to get Boynott back. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. He did rupture his Achilles a few months ago doing some off-season workout stuff. I don't know if he's 100% healthy, and obviously spending 2 months in jail, I don't know how much he could work out there and what kind of training he could do. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. And speaking of defensemen, good segue into the draft, because the Kings' first pick in the draft, the 43rd overall pick, so the second round, was a defenseman, picking up Eric Cernak in the second round there. Go over the draft that took place and how the Kings did at that.
Well, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of us trading our first-round pick. Beyond that, you're looking at a deep draft. Everyone the Kings drafted this season is over 6 feet tall. The Kings went huge, like they tend to. So, I mean, Cernak's a 6'3" dude, over 200 pounds, is an 18-year-old. He's a defenseman from Slovakia. I don't know how well he's going to turn out. Obviously, you never know at this point. The Kings don't really have anybody that they drafted that stands out aside from maybe him. He was really the only big-name dude that we got, and he played pretty well at the junior tournament for Slovakia. We got a Russian in the second round. Russians, obviously, there's that stigma that people are like, well, will they play in the KHL? This is a 6'4" dude we got in the third round. But the KHL is losing people right now because of the ruble crashing in Russia. So people are hopping back over to the NHL. So we'll see how that goes, hoping that he ends up coming over here. After that, we just got a bunch of dudes I don't really know too much about. So I can't really give you too much information on them. I just know we drafted really big. And that's just kind of the way that we've maintained things the last few years. Just get bigger, stronger. We drafted one dude that's like 6'6". So that's just how the Kings are. Big, bruising team. And that's the way Dean Lombardi is going to keep it. So.
All right.
Oh, we also traded a couple picks later. We traded a couple picks, like I think our 6th or 7th round pick. We traded for next year. We traded down a bit. This was a disappointing draft for us. So.
All right. And now we look ahead, gaze into our crystal ball here, and look at the next season. The Pacific Division, which the Kings finished in 4th place with 95 points, a 40, 27, and 15 record. And as we look at that division, a lot of change, especially in San Jose and Edmonton, with the arrival of new head coaches. Of course, Connor McDavid arriving in Edmonton. Arizona looks to be on the up and up. Vancouver, Anaheim making plenty of changes, and Calgary looks to be potent, perhaps yet again. Talk about how you feel where you could see the Kings competing, perhaps finishing in this division.
1 second.
Yeah, so. While he's going to fix his dog, I guess. Welcome back, Daniel. Seems you had a little bit of technical difficulty there. A little bit earlier. No.
Oh,
Sorry,
gosh.
somebody was at my door.
Oh, okay.
And the dog decided to attack them. This coming season, I expect us to make the playoffs and push for another championship, realistically. I think that if we stay healthy, we're going to have a solid top line. Hopefully everybody's rested and ready to go. Kopitar, Gaborik, and Lucic gives you size and with Gabrick, you got a guy that can shoot, some speed there. Obviously, that 70s line is going to be back together. Hopefully, they get back into the form they were at the beginning of last season. Our third and fourth lines, we lost Jared Stoll. I don't know how much that's going to affect our defensive end. He took a lot of starts as far as centers and faceoffs in the defensive zone. And now we're going to have Trevor Lewis or Nick Shore. I don't know how that's going to go, but Dustin Brown and Dwight King on our third line I'm okay with. That's kind of where they both fit. Our fourth line is going to be with Clifford and Nolan, which is fine too. So I think that our team as a whole is going to be good enough to get wherever they need to go, as long as everybody stays healthy and we play well. Voinov's going to come back. Our defense will be shored up a little bit there. Until he comes back at full strength, though, I think we might get off to just a so-so start. I don't think we're going to win the division. I think Anaheim's still the best team in the division. But I think that we could push for second place. Even though Edmonton's better, Calgary's better, I think Vancouver's going to take a step back. San Jose's going to take a step back. Well, San Jose's going to be about where they were last year. They missed the playoffs too. So, Arizona's maybe the worst team in the league. I don't really see them doing much. And after that, I mean, once you get to the playoffs, I think that depending on the Patrick Kane situation and with the losses they've had, I don't know that Chicago's going to be a team that's going to be able to repeat. So it's wide open in the West right now. And I think that the Kings have as good a chance as anybody, especially with the experience they have. As long as they can figure out their overtime and shootout woes. Hopefully, I mean, maybe Milan Lucic can help there. I don't really know his shootout stats, but he can't be worse than what we were last season. So if Marian Gabrick's healthy all year, which is a big if because he's always hurt, but he's a guy that hopefully can contribute more on those shootouts as well. So.
And this is normally my next question is if people can see their team being buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. However, would you say that would be too difficult to see at this point with the uncertainty with Mike Richards and Voinov?
At this point, no, I don't think that we can do anything other than sell if we're going to do anything, because we don't have anything to negotiate with unless we trade another first-round pick. Like, we've already traded away a bunch of our best prospects and things like that. I mean, there are some guys. Our AHL team actually won the Calder Trophy. So we have some prospects that are okay, but in my opinion, we don't have a great prospect pool now. One reason that we did win the AHL championship is because we've had such a good team the last few years that we haven't had to push prospects up to the NHL level for the most part. Because when you're winning and you have a good roster, you don't need to constantly be retooling it with guys coming up and dropping other dudes. So since we had a decent team, a lot of our guys got to spend more time in the minors than some other teams might have. It's kind of the whole, like the Grand Rapids Griffiths, the Red Wings AHL team is always consistently good because the Red Wings keep their guys down there, but the Red Wings make the playoffs every year. It's the same kind of deal. So we had that luxury this year, but we don't have a lot of top-end talent in the minor leagues. We have a few guys that will hopefully make the NHL. I mean, Nick Shore is probably going to be up here full-time this year, replacing Jared Stoll at center. Aside from that, Jordan Wheel will get a chance. And then, I mean, we don't really have a lot else. There's this guy, Brian O'Neill, who won MVP last season, but he's kind of older, and he's just been hanging around down there. I mean, he might get a shot on our fourth line or something like that, but aside from that, I don't know that we have enough to actually do anything at the trade deadline, especially with salary cap concerns, like you said.
And the final question is when I normally ask fans their current playoff window for the team. However, I did notice you did mention you feel the Kings can make the playoffs this next season. Just to kind of elaborate on that for this last question.
Well, like I said, I think that on paper, right now, we're the second best team in the Pacific. I think the Ducks will continue to be good this season and probably win the division again. I think that. So from that point, I mean, the top 3 teams in each division make the playoffs. Calgary is going to be better. Calgary's going to be really good, actually. I mean, unless they take a step back. They obviously progressed faster than people thought they would. But they were only 2 points ahead of the Kings. They made the final playoff spot that the Kings missed. I feel like the Kings can be better than them. I think those are the 3 teams you're looking at for the division right now. It's Calgary, Anaheim, and Los Angeles. San Jose is getting older and not necessarily better. I don't really know what they were doing in the offseason. I mean, they gave up John Scott. Who does that? But, yeah. So, as of right now, I see us squeaking in to one of the top 3 spots in the Pacific. And from there, we'll just see. I mean, as of right now, I kind of feel like the West has not got a lot better this offseason overall. I feel like the Eastern Conference has gotten better. So that is actually good for us. Aside from maybe Calgary getting better, I don't really see a lot of other teams that got that much better on the West Coast.
Alrighty, and that will conclude the Kings season review. Dave, if he has anything he'd like to add.
No, I do not.
No, not really.
Are you sure the Flyers are they're pretty much Kings East, you know?
And I feel like our teams are kind of separated now. It's been enough time that our teams aren't really East-West versions of each other.
A fair statement.
Yeah, but I don't have anything, so.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Dave.
We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Alright. So, just a little reset here. This is the Wooden Ball Show. We will be restarting the Ottawa Senators interview here with Daniel again. So, are you now ready, Daniel? Is your computer going to die again? Daniel?
Oh dear.
It looks like we lost him again. Alright, so, I guess we'll just end it here if we can't get him back. So, yeah, I guess we'll just end it.
I'll add one thing.
Okay.
I'll add something on the Ottawa Senators. The last season especially, that was one of the more fascinating seasons I have seen in quite a while from an NHL team. I think really that past season you can separate into 3 different parts. The first part is the beginning of the season in which, you know, they're in the mix, but they're not really wowing everyone. And then part 2 is when they fall off that cliff and everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And then part 3, you bring in Andrew Hammond and what seemed like a pipe dream, or what, you know, was a pipe dream then of making the playoffs, turns into making the playoffs.
Mhm.
Of course, though, I do remember you mentioning Andrew Hammond's not so successful season in the AHL, and I do find that maybe a little bit concerning that the Senators would sign Hammond to I think it was a 3-year contract there.
look that up quickly. We might be pulling in another Ottawa Senators fan quickly. Jamish might be joining us. So, so hopefully he will be able to join. But they re-signed Hammond to a 3-year deal. It looks like for 1.35 million.
Oh yes, and for those of you who aren't aware, Dave, if you could recap for us Andrew Hammond's not so great performance in the AHL before the call up.
All right, so Andrew Hammond, I got to personally watch this happen to him, but during a game against the High Valley Phantoms, who weren't that great of a team, in all honesty, I watched them score their first goal of the game at 15 seconds into the game. And then 21 seconds later, they have scored their third goal of the game. And he was pulled from the game. So 3 goals in 21 seconds is how Hammond kind of, the first time I ever really watched Hammond play. I was thinking maybe that it's kind of a one-off for a goaltender maybe, but looking at his numbers in the AHL, let me quickly pull them up. They weren't that great of numbers, if I'm remembering correctly. 1 second, it's gonna take me might take me a little bit to pull them up. He has in his kind of 2 seasons with the Senators. The first season he played 48 games. He had a 2.81 goals against average with a 9.10 save percentage, which isn't bad. But during his second season, where he played 25 games, he had a 3.5 goals against average and an 8.98 save percentage, which is not a good save percentage. Keeping in mind that the Senators were not that great that season, it's kind of weird that they picked Hammond, an unproven goaltender who is just okay in the AHL, to back up Anderson, who is a very hot and cold goaltender. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm kind of confused what they will be doing there.
For the record, listeners, the two of us are really just filling time at the moment while we work to perhaps get a different Ottawa Senators fan, or Daniel, if he could perhaps get his internet issues resolved or whatever. So you mentioned Andrew Hammond's not so great that one not so great AHL game, especially and his season before being called up by Ottawa. What with that in mind, what did you make of the Senators' playoff push there?
It was honestly very fun to watch. Like, as much as it got annoying watching the Senators go crazy about Hammond, and how much I was begging for him to regress the mean heavily, to which he would fall back to an average goaltender that he could be. And it looks like we have our Senators fan here finally. So, but it was definitely fun to watch their playoff push there. Hey, Jamish, how are you doing?
Hello.
Thank you for quickly jumping in and joining us on this.
I'm trying to get my microphone set up. Is it good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
So Dan has failed you, I hear?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Or perhaps his internet, or his computer, or his microphone. Something failed him.
Yeah, but for everyone that doesn't know, this is Jamish. He is an Ottawa Senators fan that we often talk to. So yeah,
True.
Welcome to the podcast. I think this is one of your first times ever on it.
I used to be on it a couple of years
Oh yeah, you were on the Toddler
back when first
show.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is true.
I hope you come ready at such short notice with tons of Senators' information.
I got the hottest takes right here. Don't worry, guys.
I love
That's all we want from you. That's all we want.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of give us an overview on what you thought of this past season you guys had.
Well, it was probably the most interesting Ottawa Senators season ever, I have to say. I think Blake did a pretty good job of summarizing it, where we started off sort of like, not too bad, an early start. We had a couple wins, nothing extraordinary, and things began to crumble rapidly, especially during the Hurricanes game where Clark MacArthur and Robin Leonard both got hurt in the same play. And at that point, I think most Ottawa Senators fans decided to join Team Tank. Like that we can't go up from here. We lost our basically starting goaltender and our top line winger.
Mhm.
But after that, things turned around exponentially, amazingly. Immediately after that, Andrew Hammond got called up. We won a game against the Habs. That was awesome.
Mhm.
Then we shut out Anaheim and LA back-to-back nights, which was absolutely incredible. And everyone was sort of wondering, can things keep going this way? Can we keep winning? Can we manage to come back into the race? And I think most people agreed, no, probably not. This is just a hot run. But no, the team managed to pull things together. The offense had all cylinders firing. Andrew Hammond played like an NHL goaltender. And it was pretty much a miracle, I have to say.
Yeah. So, looking at like kind of had this team, like the team kind of did run forward. What would you give like kind of give an overview of how the forward performed through this season, and then kind of give a grade at the end?
Hmm. Well, I guess it was a bit weird. We lost Jason Spezza during the offseason. We traded him to Dallas for second Nick Paul and Alex Jason. So at that point, most people thought that it was either going to be around the same or a bit worse because, as you know, Jason Spezza is a creative playmaker, point per game player. But things didn't actually go that horribly. Kyle Turris took another step up. I think he's finally sort of cemented himself as either a 1A or a top line center. Um, I guess the other big story would be us sort of finding out about Mike Hoffman and Mark Stone, two probably the best prospects we had in our pool. Mike Hoffman was a 23-year-old left winger who's we drafted, I think, the sixth round. He's kind of the kind of guy who will score you a huge goal in a moment when you don't think he's going to get anything, and just makes amazing plays. I think one of the fastest players in the league. He can go from like 0 to 100 just like that and blow by most defensemen. And then you have Mark Stone, he might be the next Alfie on our team. He's a really good defensive player actually. One thing that you don't know, he led the league in takeaways, I believe.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I remember one amazing play where he just unhanded Jerome McGinley. He just managed to steal the puck, like dipsy doodle, pass it to Clark MacArthur, and they scored. He makes the most amazing plays in the neutral zone, but will also score just those beautiful goals. Though the only thing I think that's really wrong with him is he's not that fast. He's actually a pretty slow player, which is why he was drafted so low. Besides that, you have Mika Zibanejad and Bobby Ryan. I think those are two other players you're going to find in their top two or top six. Bobby Ryan, I've been a bit disappointed by him actually. He's not the player that we thought we were getting, I guess. Because what we thought we were getting was a sort of a 30-goal scorer who would do these amazing sort of moves and just score big goals when you need them. But he's been more of an okay two-way player who scores around 20 goals a year, which I'm not disappointed by. That's a great thing to have. But he's not the guy that we really wanted.
Yeah.
Mika Zibanejad, I don't really know. He's a really good player. I think he's gonna be a second line center for a while. I don't think he's gonna be the number one center like the management thinks he is, because Kyle Turris is just so good. But Mika Zibanejad, every year he takes a step up. I think he's 22 right now, and I think he has a really big ceiling.
Okay. Yeah, he's 22 right now, so.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about the sort of bottom six?
Yeah, just talk about the whole forwards in general, and then give a one giant grade at the end.
Okay. As for like a third line, I think what the third line next year will be. Well, let me talk about this year. This year, our third line for the second half was Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Curtis Lazar, and my boy Eric Condra. Pageau he's such a fun player. Like the one that I always compare him to is like a slightly less good Brendan Gallagher. He's just a very small player. But he's gonna get under your skin. He's gonna make some really fun things happen, and he's gonna get in front of the net and do some really cool things. Curtis Lazar, the Ottawa's Wonder Boy, who we seem to think is going to be the next Wayne Gretzky for some reason. But really, what Curtis Lazar is, he's the kind of player that every team kind of wants to have because he's not going to score 60 points. He's not going to be in the Rocket Richard Trophy running, but he's going to be the player that's going to make a lot of things happen that you don't really know you want to happen. Like he's going to score some dirty goals that out of nothing plays. He's going to every once in a while get a really good shot and just snipe it in, and he's going to make a really big physical presence at the same time. But he's not what everyone thinks he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a first-line center. I don't think he's going to be a next captain. But he's going to be such a good player to have on the team for a long time. And rest in peace, Eric Condra. You left for Tampa Bay. You're probably going to win a cup there. I miss you. Oh, man. Eric Condra. I think that's one of the most... Having him leave was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen as a Sens fan. He is such an underrated player. Every time I watched the Sens last year, I saw him do something so useful and so good, and he was going to kill the penalties like a genius, and he was going to get breakaways every single game and miss, and I loved him for that. But we let him walk we offered him less money than he was making now, and he was making, I think, $1 million. Oh, but the third line next year, I think we're going to have Matt Pumple on it or Alex Chaisson.
Okay.
Matt Pumple is going to be on the team, I think. I don't think he can go back down. What he is he's a fast player who will score not too many goals, but he's going to drive a lot of play. He's not going to be a very good player, but he's really physical, and he's going to be a kind of pseudo power forward, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And for the fourth line, I don't really want to talk about it because it's absolutely disgusting.
Come on, you got to talk about it. We all have to go through pain.
Oh, God. It's probably going to be Colin Greening, Zach Smith, and Chris Neal. Which is the kind of line that's going to get on the ice, dump the puck, and immediately have it come back and they're going to score. I don't like to talk about Zach Smith because I think he's a pretty good player, but he gets dragged down by his line mates so much. Colin Greening, I don't know if you remember his rookie season when he played with Jason Spezza, but he was basically Jason Spezza pretty much had his hand wrapped around Colin Greening. It was dragging him to score goals. It was so funny because we all thought he was going to be this great player, but no, he's just Jason Spezza's other stick.
So the Jonathan Chichu,
but now he's
hardcore.
Basically, he was just being propped up by this amazing possible Hall of Famer. And we signed him to $2.6 million a year, I think it was.
Yeah, 265.
You
only have 2 more years, so don't worry.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was terrible. Chris Neal, he has the Sens fan base divided in such an interesting way, where some people think he's this amazing player who gets the energy going, he's bringing the team, he's doing all these things. And other people think he's just one of the worstest player in the league. I don't think there's anyone in between that. Well, except, I don't know. I don't think he's horrible. He scores around 10 goals a year, I think. But his defensive play is horrible. Like, he doesn't, for like 10 years, for his basically entire career with the Sens, he doesn't understand what offside is. Every single game he goes offside. It's incredible. I think there are people who are under 10 years old who understand it better than him. And yeah, he's going to play 50 games a year or so. So that line, Uh, I hope it can get a bit better. I hope Colin Grinning can be a bit better. I hope Chris Neal doesn't keep going down. But as for an overall grade, I don't know. I'd say last year. Oh, it's really hard to say because it was such a split year. At the end of the year, I think I would probably give them an A, maybe. Yeah, I think A minus A.
Okay.
Beginning of the year, they're probably around a B, B minus.
Okay. You can do kind of what I did. I kind of broke up based on like I had for when I did the Far Flyers interview, I broke up based on different players kind of thing. So I did like these players get this grade and these players get this grade. So I
Okay.
guess you can kind of do that too.
All right, not gonna do that. Our first line of oh, actually, I forgot to mention someone. I forgot to mention
Okay.
Milan Michalek. Um, Milan Michalek is probably the most interesting player on the Sens.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a while, Clark MacArthur, our first line left winger, was hurt,
Mm-hmm.
and he played with Turris and Stone, and he was pretty good. He looked like vintage Milan Michalek. But then, when there's no more room, when Clark MacArthur comes back, he goes down to the first, third, and fourth line, and he's a bum again. So he's going to be really interesting to see what happens to him because he's basically someone who feeds off of other players getting injured and getting a shot. So I'd say I give the first line of MacArthur, Turris, and Stone. I think I'd give them around an A minus to an A.
Okay.
I think the second line of Mike Hoffman, Mika Zibanejad, and Bobby Ryan, they drove the Sens year for a while. They were really only people getting stuff done. I'd give them but other times they looked invisible, and it was kind of sad to see. I'd give them around a B to B plus.
Okay.
Then Pajot, Lazar, Condra. I definitely would be overrating them because I treat them like they were golden all year, but they weren't. There were a lot of games when they weren't really doing very much, but other games they were stealing the show. I give them around a B, I think.
Okay.
And the fourth line of
Tell us how you really feel about it.
I don't know. That would be rated probably R if they go on a rant for around 5 minutes. They were. I think I give them around D plus to C minus. That's about as best I can give them.
Okay, fair enough. So
Yeah.
kind of do the same thing with defense now. You got to break down that defense.
Oh, the defense is really interesting because Sens fans and Sens management seem to have a completely different view on how the defense is.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start going sort of line by line.
Okay.
Basically, the thing that drove the defense the entire year was, oh god, Erik Karlsson is a magical Swedish beautiful god. He is. I think he's still kind of underrated by people that don't watch every single Sens game because there are some times when you wonder how he even manages to do the things he does. For a while, unfortunately, he got dragged down by the people he was playing with
Mm-hmm.
because during the offseason, Mark Mathot got injured somehow. I'm still not sure how it happened. I'm going to assume he was out clubbing with the boys, but that's up for argument. He had his hip, he needed hip surgery, I think, and missed around half the year and played around 38 games. And he's basically, without Erik Karlsson without Mark Mathot, is like a horse without a saddle. You can get stuff done, but you aren't going to get full potential out of it. You need a saddle. And Mark Mathot basically allows Erik Karlsson to do basically whatever he wants because Mark Mathot's going to be there and he's not going to let very many people get into the zone during plays. He's going to break up 2-on-1s. He's going to do a lot of non-offensive things, but he's going to be there and doing great things when Erik Karlsson needs him to. But without him, Erik Karlsson doesn't really get as much done. He played with Chris Phillips. God rest his soul. He played with Mark Borowiecki, he's a boneheaded defenseman who's going to fight and not do very much. He played with Jared Cowan, who's so bad. And he played with Eric Greiba. I'm glad he's gone. But once Mark Mathot got back, everything went right. It was like a completely different Erik Karlsson. And that's so exciting. As long as Mark Mathot can stay healthy, it's one of the best first-round defenses on the league, I think, besides like maybe St. Louis and LA and teams like that. And obviously Chicago. The second line, no one really knows what our second line is. It changes a lot. For a while, I think it was Jared Cowan and Cody Ceci. That was a huge mistake because it brought Cody Ceci down. And Cody Ceci is such a young player. He's going to have such a high ceiling. I think he's 21, and he's got a lot of room to grow because he plays a very, very strong overall game where he can do some very good defensive moves and also make a lot of offensive sort of breakout passes happen. But having him play with Jared Cowan was horrible because do I have to talk about Jared Cowan?
Gotta do it. Gotta rip the Band-Aid off.
Jared Cowan, I was talking with Dan and Hamza for a little while back about this, and I said something along the lines of Jared Cowan is so bad, but we can't let go at this point because we've invested ourselves in him. During his rookie season, he looked so promising because he made a lot of things that we didn't have on defense happen. Like he played such a strong defensive game, but was also very good at the offensive movement. But he got injured, and I forget what his injury was. And it basically ruined his game, and we don't know what happened because it's like a completely different player. Either he lost complete confidence in himself, or he has no more physical ability to play hockey. But unfortunately, we have him for like another 2 years, and we've basically dug ourselves in a hole where we can't really trade him because everyone knows how bad he is now. So we can't get rid of him, and I hope the Sens can somehow manage to fix him. I don't know if they can, unfortunately. But then we have on the lines of the second line, Cody Ceci, who's basically the exact opposite, where he's young, he's got a lot of potential, and we can't send him down anymore. And I wish we had, because I think we didn't really give him as much of an opportunity to grow in the AHL. But he's good enough that he can play NHL hockey just fine. And then we have, I think, 6 players on our third line. We have, I'll list them off. We had Chris Phillips, Jared Cowan, Patrick Rierkosh, who I think is the second pairing. We have, who's the other guy? Mark Borowiecki, and we traded Eric Grabas, so he's not there. Chris Phillips, he was the first overall pick in the 1999 draft, I think, or 1996. He should retire. He should definitely retire. He can't do it anymore.
It was 96. So,
96. That was so long ago. I wasn't even alive.
Were you not alive then?
That's incredible. Yeah, he needs to retire. He's pretty beloved by a Sens fan base because he's been here so long, and he's done a lot of great things in the community. But he can't play NHL hockey anymore. He's too slow, and he's lost a lot of the vision that he had, which used to make him really valuable for the Sens. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to want to give up. I think he's got one more year on his contract.
This is last year coming up. So.
Yeah, he's gonna have to retire after this year. I'm gonna miss him. He was a good player.
He'll be 38, so he's had a full career.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to keep playing him because he's our assistant captain. Yeah, that's really sad. Another player, Mark Borowiecki. I talked a bit about him, but we signed him for 4 years at $1 million. He's the kind of guy you're going to have in for 40, 50 games. He's gonna basically fill the bottom pairing role. You have Patrick Rierkosh, who is probably a bit overrated by fans and underrated by the management because he's very slow. He doesn't have very much acceleration or movement speed, but he's got one of the best breakout passes on the team. he can set up a player for a good 2-on-1 or 1-on-1 or even a breakaway because he's got amazing vision. He can see players in positions and he's going to know where they're going to be. But unfortunately, he's been moved down to the bottom role because the management doesn't really think he has much potential. But he was on Team Canada for the World Championship, and he got some amazing shots in there. He got amazing goals.
Mhm.
I think the management is starting to see that he can fill that second pairing role. Like a Weir Kosh Cody CC role would be really good, but I hope they can keep him in that role. And the last guy on defense, I feel there's one more guy, but I'm forgetting about him. Or maybe not. I think I talked about all of them.
The guy that you traded.
Eric Greiba. Eric Greiba, he was a fun guy to have on the team because he had off the ice had such a funny personality, and he seemed very happy with what he was doing. But unfortunately, he was just another guy that hits hard and doesn't do very much other than that. I think he's going to be fun in Edmonton. He's going to play a good third pairing role. I think he's going to be an upgrade on some of their defensemen, but he's not the be all end all of third pairings. Let's just go with that.
Mhm.
Also, I want to talk about two other players in the minors that might have a chance to make it this year since we've traded Eric Greiba, which would be Chris Weidman, who was, I think, the AHL Defenseman of the Year. He's 25, I think. We didn't draft him. We signed him as a free agent. And I think he's going to get a shot because he's a right-handed defenseman who can score a lot of goals and isn't a liability on defense. So I think he's going to get a shot. We also have Freddie Claesson, who I think he's Swedish, which is always a bonus on this team for some reason.
Are you trying to be Detroit number 2 or something?
Oh, we tried, but we traded all our Swedes for some reason. I think he's very young. I think he's 22 or 21, and he's got a lot of potential, I think. But unfortunately, we had a logjam on defense, and we couldn't really get him in. But I think he's going to make it on Sens one year.
Okay.
And that's all we have for defense, I think.
Okay, and what is your grade for the defense? And you can split it up with, Carlson and everyone else if you wanted.
I think we need to. So basically, assuming the first pairing is Mathot Carlson, I think that pairing would be A to A+.
Okay.
Some games I think goes A+, other times A, but definitely no lower than that because they are magic together. I will also assume that the other line is Patrick Weir, Kosh, Cody, Ceci. That one it's hard to say what their really ranking is because they didn't get to play together very often, but when they did, it was really good.
Okay.
I give that around a B, with the potential to be around a B+ to an A-, depending on how long they can play together. And we have enough for 2 third pairings. I'd say the best players out of that are Jared Cowan and Mark Borowiecki.
Okay.
Because Chris Phillips is not even an NHL defenseman at this point. I think those two are okay. I mean, well, they're terrible, but they're okay at the same time. I'd give them around a C+, probably C-, actually. They were really bad.
Okay.
Trying to be optimistic because I hope they can be better.
All right, so that's your defensive breakdown, and now
Yep.
go into.
I wanted to jump in here real quick with something
Ooh.
somewhat related.
Okay.
Do you have a hot take?
Mentioned the 1996 NHL draft. I decided to take a look at it because I was curious, and wow, that draft was terrible.
It was
Yeah,
bad.
96, and the other draft you mentioned 99 that you were
Oh.
confused of which one it was. They were
Those
both
are-
really bad.
There's Chris
I think-
Phillips, the first overall pick, and then 2 to 23. I've never heard of those people. Well, Marco Sturm, Marty Reasoner, I'm familiar with those people, but I have to go 24th overall pick till I find somebody. That was
You don't know
dating.
Danny Zuberis? Danny Zuberis
Zu-
has been in the league a long time.
Oh,
He's
Zuberis.
still
I
still
just-
hanging around.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
he. I think he's done this season. I don't.
Oh,
think
is
that was
he
his name.
retiring?
I don't think the Devils retained him this year.
I liked
I
him.
think he's a free agent, right? Yeah, he's a
Still,
free agent
though.
right now. So
He's probably going to go to Europe and play a bit more because I don't think he's done. He can
Yeah.
still play.
he's
Still, though,
37. So, yeah.
that first round, oh,
They had some pretty good players near the end, I think.
Yeah, they had Briere at 24. You know, I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
Briere is the best of the class there. So
Yeah.
obviously, Marco Strum's there. You got to go down to 56 to get to Chara.
Oh, yeah, he
56.
was there.
okay.
Yeah, there's not many. This wasn't a good draft in all
No.
honesty. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
in St. Louis, so that might. Why?
Thanks, Blake.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
All right.
all right, so
Do we need to go to goaltending now?
yeah, go talk about your three-headed demon of goaltending you had this year.
I don't know. It might be four headaches, and we signed another goalie.
Did you?
Yeah, Matt O'Connor.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Did he play at all this past year though?
No, he's going to be in the AHL this year, I think.
Okay, so
Because we cannot fit him.
yeah, talk about Leonard Anderson and then Hammond and his run that kind of happened.
Be glad Dan isn't here because he was a huge Leonard fan.
Yeah, I know he was talking about that for right before before the show started. He was talking about how much he had loved Leonard, and he never got a chance to talk about it.
I think he overrates Leonard a bit. He makes some good points about how Leonard, when he gets on a run, Leonard can be really good.
Mhm.
But I really didn't like him because he lost focus and lost composure a bit too easily. Like not in a sort of like Patrick Waugh, Tuukka Rask kind of way where where it kind of set him on a different level and he could still go there, but he would let in like 3 goals on 4 shots and stuff, and he couldn't gain composure back when he lost it. And I think that's going to be his downfall. He's going to be an NHL goalie, I think, but I don't think he's going to be a good sort of elite starting goalie. Okay. Even though he is young, he's a bit younger than a lot of people think. We think he's like 23, and he's played in the NHL for a while. But I think trading him was probably the right idea.
We can go into that when we talk about the trade during the off season. So just talk about the 3 goaltending and how they did this past season.
All right, I'll start with Craig Anderson because he's our number 1 goalie, definitely. Craig Anderson this year he's going to break the record for longest tenured Sens goalie, I think. Okay. Which is kind of crazy because I think he's been here 4 years. We've never had good goaltending. It's amazing. Like we made it to we had Ray Emery. I think he was probably the second best NHL goalie that we had, but he was only here for 3 full years, I think. We've never had solid, consistent goaltending, and I think Craig Anderson doesn't amend that because at some points he can be probably the best goalie in the league where he can go like 1 goal, 1 goal, 1 goal, 1 goal for games. And other times he's just horrible. He goes into tire fire mode. And he gets injured a lot is one of the problems. And he's getting up there in age. I think he's 34. And he's been bald since he was 20, which is a problem. You can find pictures of him with hair. It doesn't look better, actually. I don't know how long he can be a goalie. I think he can be a goalie for another 3 years before he's got to sort of take a step back and be a backup for a couple of years. But it's going to be a bit of a problem because we have one goaltending prospect, Chris Dreiger, I think is how you pronounce the name. He played in the ECHL last year and he was pretty good. And we had him up for 1 game and he didn't let in a goal. He looked decent. Besides that, we really don't have any prospects as far as goaltending goes. And it's a problem when we traded Leonard. But this team, I think the reason they trade him is they're in win-now mode. They think this is their chance because they've proven that when everything's going right, they can be an amazing team. And they have all the key pieces. And none of our players are going to get much worse for any number of years, besides the ones that are already terrible. But and we have some players that are going to get better. So they didn't want Leonard being the goalie because he wasn't ready yet. He definitely wasn't ready to be an NHL starting goaltender. But they did have Hammond and Anderson. And Anderson can be our starting goaltender for a good while. But then you have Hammond, who you cannot properly evaluate because nothing he did made any sort of sense.
Exactly.
Like, he was the greatest goaltender of all time for the time he played. How can you compare that to what he's going to be or what he was?
My thoughts on him are very well known, so
It's it is hard to think about what he's going to do. I think they're going to try to get him in like a lot of games. Like, they're not going to put him in like one game, 2 games a week. I think they're going to try to split him with Anderson and say, all right, you can play for a full 3 games a week. Then you have Hammond play for 4 games, then Anderson 4 games, then Hammond 4 games, because
Okay.
they don't want him to fall off, because they're worried that once he falls off, he's not going to gain anything back, which I think is a fair concern, because near the end of the year, he wasn't playing as well as he could. I think he did have an injury, but I think he lost a bit of the mojo, which sort of came to heads when he played in the playoffs and wasn't very good. But I think they're gonna try to give him as much of a chance to succeed as possible, because they have no other option at this point. But then you have the guy that we signed, Matt O'Connor, who some Sens fans think he's going to be the starting goaltender. They're wrong. He's just a depth goaltender. He's going to play in the AHL, and if there's an injury, he can play backup or even start a game if they need him to. But he's not going to
23
be.
though.
Hmm?
He's 23. He's very young. He's
True,
very
but-
far from his goaltending prime. That starts around 30ish, so.
No, I guess that's true. He's around the same age as Leonard. But he's definitely not going to be on the roster at the start of the year, and he's probably not going to get a chance until maybe the end of the year if there's an injury or they want to see what he can do. But I don't think he factors into the formula right now.
Okay.
But should I talk about Leonard or should I wait for that?
You can kind of, if you talk about him in the context of this past season, you can do it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 'cause the season was interesting. He had a good run right before he was injured, and Dan likes to talk about this as being this is what he can do. Where I think the goals against him were 1, 2, 1, and 3, but then he got injured. And I think he's right that is when Leonard is on, he is on. He's a good goaltender. He will save you games. He will make incredible saves. But then there's other times where he had a run when Anderson was injured and Leonard was the only option, where he let in like 5 goals a game for a couple of consecutive nights. And you could see it in his eyes when the camera went to him that he was so frustrated and he didn't know what was going on. And that's part of the problem. He can't get in the zone once he leaves it. And and that's gonna be his downfall as a goaltender, I think. And it's a bit sad because he's a great character, he's a good guy, and he's very funny. But he's not a good starting goaltender at this point.
Okay.
But also Dan brought up this good point. In Buffalo, he's gonna probably be the number 1 goalie, I think. And I
Yeah,
think that's gonna be really good for him because he can get in the zone, he can stay there, and he's not gonna be pulled out for another goaltender. He's gonna be the man there, and I think he's gonna succeed. But I don't think he ever had that shot in Ottawa. I don't think he's ever gonna get it because it wasn't what we were looking for.
Okay. So.
Should I have to rate the goaltending?
Yeah, you gotta rate the goaltending.
Oh God. I'll rate it by. I'll rate all 3 of them individually.
Okay.
I think Anderson. He was around average this year. I think he was around a B plus. I think that's a very fair analysis. Leonard, I think this was probably his worst year. Maybe last year. He was around a C plus, I think, maybe B minus, because he had on and off games, but he never really strung any good consistency in. And Andrew Hammond was maybe B minus C. I don't want to rate Hammond because I'm gonna overrate him by saying he's an A plus because that's what he was, and it's kind of crazy that he was. That's the only fair thing to give him. 21, 1 and 2, I think, was his record at the end of the year.
give him what you think is best. I
And,
mean, you're rating him on how he did during the season, so even if
yeah,
you are overrating him, that's how he performed.
he
So
he
it
performed
makes
to A plus, I think.
okay. Okay, and
So,
now for your coaching. Oh, Blake, do you
coach.
want to say something?
Oh,
Oh.
yes, jumping in with another amazing contribution to this interview.
Mhm.
Ever since James mentioned it, I am still actively looking for a picture of Craig Anderson with him.
There's one I saw him when he was drafted by Chicago. He had hair.
Oh, a draft photo. Okay, I'll look that up. I'm going to put it on Twitter because I expect it to be amazing.
It is hilarious. His face looks exactly the same, but he has hair. It is hilarious. Okay, so coaching?
Yeah, go to coaching.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about this and I asked some questions about this because around halfway through the year we had Paul McLean, who former Jack Adams winner Paul McLean. Paul McLean is he's a it's so hard to understand him because the year he won the Jack Adams, there was a very specific reason why he won. He was a people's coach. The players loved him because he allowed them to do what they thought was best. Because he wasn't really sure because he had all the injury problems. He wasn't really used to the team yet, and he sort of let the sort of guys do what they needed. He allowed the young people to sort of talk to him. He was open to their suggestions of what they thought they could do, and he sort of went along with that. And I think that's when he won the Jack Adams. I think he got overconfident, and he sort of thought he knew what the people wanted then. He started to, well, I'll go into things I did like about him first. I thought he was his structure of the way he made lines was smart. It was a smart way to do it, where he allowed lines to build chemistry. He didn't change them too much until he did when he got fired, and he was changing them like mid-game, and it wasn't working. But he was very formulaic, and he thought of coaching as more of an art than a science, where things it wouldn't work because they made sense. They would work because they just did work. I mean, he allowed the Terse MacArthur Ryan line to run because they were working. He didn't know why, but he just went with it. As far as the things I hated about him, he wasn't very good at communicating with the players. It seemed like when at the end of the year and the players were doing their end of year interviews, they didn't seem to understand what he was doing. They didn't really understand his techniques or anything as to why he was doing the things he was doing, and he really lost their confidence. And that was, I think, his downfall, because the players didn't want to be coached by him anymore, and they didn't think that he could coach them anymore. And it's probably because he can't, because he wasn't a very good coach. He was very good at letting players coach themselves. And he won the Jack Adams for it, and oh, that was a mistake. Jeez, I can't believe that. And he was also really I don't know what games he was watching, but he seemed to love bad players. He loved Colin Greening. He loved Chris Phillips. He loved Chris Neal. He liked Mark Borowiecki. He liked David Legwand. He loved veterans who he thought had really good intangibles and leadership and grit and truculence. And he overrated them so much that they were getting more minutes than Bobby Ryan. It was hilarious. He was watching a completely different game than what anyone else was watching. And even like I don't think even the players he liked were understood why he was doing it. They didn't seem to want to do it. They was like, I can't do this. You're putting me in minutes I can't play. You're playing me in power play positions I can't play. And it really ruined the structure of the team. And the team that turned against him, even though he thought he was doing the right thing. And then he got fired, and it was beautiful. Because and then there's a part that is going to be so interesting to see, because they promoted assistant, I think he ran the power play, Dave Cameron. They promoted him to be head coach, he has an interesting story because he coached junior. He went to the Memorial Cup Finals, I think. He lost. He was an AHL coach for a while, and he did pretty well there. And he was promoted to assistant coach here. I'm not sure if I got that right, but he definitely did go to the Memorial Cup Finals. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone can really rate him because I'm not sure if he was just a good coach or Andrew Hammond was coaching the team. He definitely did a lot of things that Sens fans were so grateful for. Like he took a lot of he restructured the way the special teams worked. He used penalty killing a bit better, I think. I think they used a different system for the power play that I don't think Paul McLean wanted him to use. As in, like, he took David Legwand off, I think. He put Patrick Wierkosh in. He put Mike Hoffman in. He put Mika Zibanejad in. He put a lot of the fancy players that were going to get really good sort of passing streaks in and all that. And it worked a completely different way, and it worked beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely something that he has going for him. But he also has the problem where we don't really know how good a coach he is. Because it wasn't really him doing he wasn't the reason they went on the streak they did. I think he definitely enabled that to sort of happen. Where it wasn't just Andrew Hammond that won the games. The offense was doing incredible things. Like Mark Stone went on this crazy streak, and he had the most points 5-on-5 since January or something like that. It was incredible. Dave Cameron obviously didn't coach that, but he definitely gave players the ability to do what they were able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why he's going to be at least a decent coach next year, but he's not going to be like Jack Adams winner or anything like that.
Okay.
But he's definitely an improvement, I'd say. I don't think I have anything else to add, though.
So if you have a grade?
Paul McLean, D+. He wasn't the coach of the team. He's going to be horrible in Anaheim on the power play, I think, because he doesn't know how power plays work. Dave Cameron, I'd say I give him a B, I think, because he's not the greatest coach. He made a lot of decisions I didn't like he moved Mike Hoffman down, and he played David Legwand a bit more than I would have liked. But overall, I think he's going to be a good coach.
All right. And I hear Blake wants to say something here.
Yes.
You got a hot take? Or did you find the picture?
I found the picture. It is on. I posted it to the @OurHockeyCast Twitter. You can go look at that for yourself. I mean, wow! Is it real?
I think it's real. I mean, I don't know who would have photoshopped it.
I mean, wow!
It's so weird.
That actually doesn't really look real to me. But actually, I did have what I think is a legitimate contribution here to the coaching, especially, mainly because I had actually just remembered that the Ottawa Senators did make the playoffs last season, and we transitioned into the playoff teams today. So after a particularly heated game between the Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, Dave Cameron post-game, to paraphrase, basically said, perhaps coming off in a threatening tone, PK Subban, he better watch out. And that was concerning to a lot of people, was outrageous to a lot of people. Just to kind of give us your thoughts on that particular moment and what the fallout of that has been.
Well, I think I've been pretty open about my thoughts about everything. I like PK Subban. I think he's a really great player, and I like what he does off the ice because he seems like a great sort of communicate kind of guy. Mm-hmm. But there are some moments when he acts like a real child, and he does dumb things. I think, why do I like this guy? But in the end, I don't think it was malicious. I don't think anything about it was malicious. He wasn't looking at Stone when he did it or anything. He wasn't trying to hurt us. but I think he got a fair punishment. I think everyone overreacted. I think the media overreacted, and they started to make that the story.
Mm.
Um, but over and that the whole everything about that afterwards was a mess, and there were like threats and all that dumb stuff. But overall, I think everything's fine now. Or everyone's cooled down. I hope he's okay, because we need him. And the rest is important. He also made a tweet a little while back as he said he fell through a wall doing a handstand. I hope he's okay from that.
Wow.
That was funny. I'm trying to find the picture right now. I want to see it again. So if I'm not paying attention very much, that's why. But overall, I think, yeah, it was a big mess, and
Were
I
were you shocked, surprised by Cameron's comments after that game?
well, which comments?
Um, Basically saying, PK Subban, oh, he better watch out. Paraphrasing, of course, but a lot of people, um, if you remember, it was the ones in which a lot of fans view that as, wow, he uh, put a hit out on PK Subban. His players are going to go and try to maliciously do something.
Oh, right, that. Um, I think that was a dumb comment, but I also think it was taken out of context. I I don't. I'm glad he said something and what didn't ignore it, but I don't think those are the right words to use. I much rather liked Pajot's comments about different thing where he's like, I don't care how hard PK Subban's gonna shoot the puck. I'm gonna stand there. I'm just gonna take it. I'm gonna block everything. I'd rather Cameron say much something like that. Like rather than sound a bit outraged, rather said, "We don't care. We're still gonna beat you." So while I like the fact he said something and wasn't just gonna be quiet about it, I don't think he said the right things. But I also didn't like management's comments later about like, because I think those were a bit worse, where they were like, tried to play it up a bit and make a bit of a media storm. That was dumb. Yeah, but overall, there wasn't anything malicious about it. I think Dave Cameron knew that and was just trying to maybe get under PK Subban's skin, though I don't think it worked. That's
So
hard to do, I guess.
overall, you believe all of these incidents that arose from that particular game, it's all blown over, and perhaps very little animosity, at the least, in the Senators Canadiens season series.
Um, I don't think it's gonna be violent or anything like that, but I definitely think it helped continue to build the rivalry. I think they're gonna want to outplay each other even more now, rather just like after the 2013 playoffs. But I don't think it's gonna be like a bloodbath or anything like that, because I think both sides were in the moment. It was the playoffs and all that, and I think they've sort of gone over it a bit. Because I mean, they're not children; they're not going to hold grudges that much. I think both sides know it wasn't malicious. Though I do think they're going to want to hit PK Subban a bit harder now, and they're going to try to give him something.
Alrighty, that was one deal I was curious about, that one particular moment there. Dave can resume the rest of the interview now. I believe we're to the off season now of the player transactions that occurred.
Okay.
Ah,
So are you ready for this? Transition into the off season. So first thing at first, what do you think of your team's drafting and who they all drafted?
ooh, I did a bit more research into this in like last draft and all that. I know a bit about some of the players, some of the depth picks as well. Though I'll start with the first round. We had two first-round picks. The first one was Thomas Chabot, I think. He plays in the Quebec Major Junior League, I believe. and he's a left defenseman, I think. I think he's going to be pretty good. Judging from what I've seen from his points in a couple of YouTube videos, it looks like he's gonna not just be a defensive defenseman. He's gonna be able to move the puck really well. He's not. I don't think he's gonna be. I don't think he has that high of a ceiling, but he's definitely. I think he's definitely gonna be on the team in the future. The second pick, which I'm less excited about, is I think it's Colin White. He played in the USHL and for the United States Development League or Development Team. It sounds like he's going to be a pretty good player, but it's also one of those guys that I'm a bit worried that he might not be able to get it all done. Judging for what I've read about him, he's got a very good physical side, but he's also got really good hands and can make a lot of plays happen. But I'm worried he's going to be a player that loses one of those abilities or either can't all put it together at a higher level. Though I am kind of excited about the fact that he's going to be that he played in the development team, because that puts out a lot of good players. So I think that's definitely something he's got going for him, and I'm a bit more optimistic about that.
He was almost a point per game during his second season in the development program.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he can get done.
He only played 20 games, but he was almost a point per game.
Oof. I hope that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I feel like he's going to either be one of those players that can be a really good, strong player for the team for a long time, or he's just not going to make it. I hope it's the former. As for the other picks, there was one that I'm pretty excited about. Let me get all the picks we got up so I can just remind myself. It's I don't know how to pronounce his name. Philip Al. It's AHL, and I love that.
Oh, that guy. Okay.
Yeah, we picked him pretty
Drafted
late.
2 Phillips there, so.
We did. We drafted him pretty late. I'm not sure what round it was.
4th round.
But
109th overall.
yeah. I think he's going to be pretty good.
Okay.
It definitely seems. I'm really surprised he drafted that low, because it looks like he's got a lot of things going for him. He played a bit in the Swedish Elite League, and while in the Junior League for them, and it looks like he's got a lot of talent. He's going to be one of those really silky, quick guys who can sort of move the puck so well and just dangle a bunch of people. And I'm surprised he got him so late. And I think he's gonna play like another 2 years in the Swedish league, and then we're gonna bring him over. And I think that's a smart thing to do, because that's how we do it for a lot of Swedish prospects. He's someone I'm pretty excited about. We drafted a goalie really, really late. I don't know why we have enough goalies. I'm just gonna look up the rest of our picks.
You have Gabriel Gagne, 36th overall.
Right, I remember that guy. He is someone that I'm not too sure if I'm excited about him or I'm just getting a bit over optimistic. But I think him and the other guy we drafted in the second round, Philip Schlapik or something like that.
Okay, I'm not even gonna pronounce it. I'm not gonna attempt. Go ahead.
He's Czech, so that's something. I think both of them have high potential. I'm not even sure if it's gonna be like, ooh, we got someone amazing, or he's gonna play in the AHL for a while. But they both look like they're gonna be pretty good prospects. This is probably one of my favorite drafts actually for the Sens. I think they got a lot of really good players. I think it might be because we had a lot of picks. Like last draft, we had like 4 picks or something. Yeah, that was not fun. But besides that, I'm not really excited by anyone else. We didn't draft a Russian again. I don't know what Brian Murray has against Russians.
Trust me,
it's so weird. He
my
refuses
team
to
has only
draft them.
drafted 9 in their entire history, so.
Brian Murray has never drafted one.
Really?
It's hilarious. Yeah, and that's always the funny thing, because I don't know if you remember, but we traded a first-round pick to St. Louis for David Rundblad, I think,
Yes.
and they used that to pick Vladimir Tarasenko. Oh, here's
Oh,
Blake.
and
And everyone's Tarasenko.
don't forget, the Senators then flipped Rundblad to Phoenix, now Arizona, for the pick that became Kyle Turris.
Yes, we did. We traded him. That was a fun trade. Yeah, that was a really weird because we lost out on the chance to draft Tarasenko, which again we wouldn't have drafted him. Brian Murray doesn't draft Russians, but we also got Kyle Turris, which is fair. That was a really good trade. We stole that. Yeah.
All right. So,
So
thoughts on anybody
overall,
else?
I think if I would process in our because we got a lot of good players that I think have higher potential. Like they've all a couple of them I noticed they've all sort of had a lot more experience than just playing like World Championship and all that stuff. And I'm hoping that's a good sign.
Mm. Okay. So, now looking into the trades you guys did. You guys kind of did two big trades. Robin Leonard and David Legwand for a 2015 first round pick, and then Eric Greba for a 2015 fourth round, and Travis Eelwick. I can't pronounce that. So what are your thoughts on these two trades?
Probably gonna hate me for talking about the Leonard trade. I know he's probably listening to this. Hi, Dan.
And when I wrote that, I was actually pointed more towards him. So yeah, go ahead. Continue your conversation. Go ahead.
Tell us all about Leonard. I'll start with the Leonard one. I am actually amazed we managed to get a first round pick and lose David Legwand at the same time. Because David Legwand, we signed him 2 years. I think it was 2.5 or 3 million a year. I can't remember the exact details. But he was supposed to be like either shore up our second line or play a strong third pairing or third line center role. And he did neither of those. He was at best a fourth liner who managed to just plug up the hole there.
Mm.
And it didn't work out as well as we did. And we were supposed to keep him for another year. I was sad about that because we have a lot of centers.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want him taking up the spot. But the fact that we managed to trade him and Leonard, who, by all accounts, management didn't really want as much. They weren't all high up on him. We managed to play two players that management didn't want for a first-round pick is kind of amazing. I think it was a good pick. It was the Islanders pick that they traded for Van Eck, I think.
I believe
and
so, yeah.
I think it was in the situation that we had, where we had too many goalies.
Mm-hmm.
I think we managed to come out pretty good on it.
Yeah, that was the pick that gave you Colin White, so.
Yeah. Colin White. What a white name that is. I think it was a smart trade to do, given our situation.
Okay.
But and then we have the Eric Gryba trade. You want to get in something in there?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say. I was gonna quite quickly follow up. So your team kind of seems to be choosing Hammond as its backup. And what are your thoughts on Hammond being backup, and how do you think he's gonna go this year?
I mean, I suppose so.
Mm.
No, I think I'm losing a bit of connection here. All right, we're fine now. I think that it was the Hammond signing as far as that 0.3 million or something like that. 1.25. That's a fine signing. I mean the thing that sends media and sends like bloggers and all that keep bringing up is even if he regresses, even if he suddenly becomes a not godlike goalie, he can still be fine as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even on his worst nights, he was a backup at best. I mean, it's not. We no longer have the 1A, 1B thing. We have our goalie, who's Craig Anderson, who's going to be fine. No one has any questions that he's an NHL starter. And a backup who, as far as we've seen, can play pretty well and makes good saves. I mean, we're not in hellfire mode, and we don't have two amazing goalies, but I think we're fine in goaltending.
Okay.
And we got a good return for the goalie that we traded. Yeah. And the other thing that I always like to bring up is, would you rather have who I think is probably going to kill someone one day, and Hammond, who we aren't even sure how good he is, or if we traded Anderson? I would be so worried if we had traded Anderson, because I don't think either Robin Lehner or Andrew Hammond are starting goaltenders.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up there.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. A little bit.
Let me try this one. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. We can.
Okay. I do wonder what the Sens could have gone for Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was his value at that point?
I'm not sure what his value was.
That's one of the things where people said, "Oh, you could have traded Hammond."
Yeah, I don't. He was still very unproven, so he probably wouldn't have.
It would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe some team would have taken a chance on him. I don't know, but I think trading Leonard was the best choice that the Sens could have made.
And it seems like Daniel did agree. He replied to us saying that the trade made him sad, but it was a good one for now. So he seems.
Yeah, he probably cried. His murderous Viking goaltender is no longer with us.
But yeah, looking at the other trade, the Eric Greba trade, what do you think about that trade?
That is probably the Sens' best trade in history. Because I did not think they could have gotten anything for Eric Greba, much less a pick and a prospect. Well, not really even a good prospect, just a depth prospect.
Mm.
But Eric Greba, I think we drafted him 4th round as well. So we got our money's back on him and got something else. I think that's fine, because we had too many defensemen as is. I think the end of the year we had 8 defensemen on the roster, plus Chris Weidman, who's probably going to come up for next year for a little while. So we need to trade 1, or even 2 would have been fine. So the fact that we managed to get something out of that, it was pretty good. Okay. And when I heard that, I was so excited. I think he's good. I don't have anything against Eric Greba. I just don't think he's all that good as a defenseman. But he's probably going to be fine on Edmonton. Best of luck.
And you re-signed one of your big players from this past season and during the playoffs, Mike Hoffman. How do you feel about him being re-signed? I know it took a little bit for him to be re-signed, right?
Yeah, Mike Hoffman. We got him for $2 million 1 year, I think it was.
Hoffman is $2 million for a year, yeah. And it'll be an RFA, so you still have his rights afterwards.
That's good. I think for both Hoffman and management, it made pretty good sense, because Hoffman is 24 right now, I think. He played in the AHL for 3 years. Was really good there.
He's 25 right now.
25? Oh, wow, I didn't think that. He's probably going to reach his potential either next year or maybe he already reached it.
Mm.
But he led the team in goals. So I think getting him for $2 million for 1 year is absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. And I think next year, if he performs, even if he regresses a bit, he's going to make a lot of money, because he scores a lot of goals, and he's extremely fast. He's a dynamic player, and he's no slouch on defense either. So I think he's going to be fine. He's going to make a lot of money. And as far as management is concerned, they get to know how good he really is, because we only saw him for 1 year, and I don't know if he's even as good as he was, because he was very good. I think he was 5th in the league at goals at one time, like halfway through the year. He's a very, very good goal scorer.
Okay. And you also re-signed Mark Stone this year.
That was a good signing, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was
$3.5 million.
Yeah, 3.5 months. Now, the thing I love is now we have both Kyle Turris and Mark Stone for at least 3 more years at $3.5 million, and that's a bargain. Because Mark Stone is such a strong player in like every aspect. Like you can play well in defensive zone, neutral zone, and offensive zone. And he's just he's a smart player. He's a player that's going to score goals, and he's a fun player. He just does fun things, and he makes the funniest faces. Like you can keep a camera on him at all times during the game. You're going to get some amazing shots. And I think it was a decent signing. I'm glad they didn't do it for more because again we've only seen him for 1 year. But I'm also fine with him not getting any less because that's 3.5 is a fair amount for someone who did as well as he did and only for 1 year.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, and I think that's all the big names on your team that you re-signed this past year, right?
I think we also re-signed Mika Zibanejad, I think.
Was he re-signed?
Yeah, I think
what his contract started. Yeah, it was 2 years this year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you signed him for 2 years for how much was it?
Was it
2.625.
2.65. That's a really good signing as far as I'm concerned.
Thoughts on that?
Because, I mean, every year he's extremely young. I mean, we've had him in the team for 3 or 4 years, and he's only 22 now, I think. And he gets better every year. Like this year, I think he had 40 something points,
46.
and 46. And I think that's definitely not his ceiling. He can definitely do better. He put on a lot of muscle this year, I think. He's a bigger player. He's really physical. Like he's gonna go in and he's gonna hit really hard and make really like smooth plays. So for 2 years at that money, that's amazing as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. And I think that's everyone then that you signed.
Yeah, we had a lot of signings this year.
You guys, outside of that, you didn't really do much this offseason. What are your thoughts on really what you guys really didn't do besides re-signing players? Do you wish you guys did more? Is kind of what I'm saying.
That's a hard question. I'm not really sure. They did a lot of signings. I think that was the main thing that they did. I wish they had managed to remove Chris Neal and Chris Phillips from the roster. But at the same time, I hope they can retire as Senators because I remember I grew up watching them. They've been on the team for as long as I've been alive, I think.
Yeah, Chris Phelps was drafted with you guys, so yeah.
Yeah, it's Chris Neal too.
Chris Neal, he joined your team in 2001. So.
Oh really? Well, I don't really remember what time not watching the Sens and having them on the team, or the other way around. So I hope they can retire. I think they're probably Chris Phillips is going to retire at the end of this year. I wish he had taken the off season to retire because I think he would have gone out as sort of a Sens sort of enigma because we've had him for so long. And this year he got the record for most games played by an Ottawa Senator, beating Daniel Alfredson. I'm a bit bitter about that. And the funny thing is, I think that game he got that record was the last game he played the season. It's like he was just trying to spite Alfredson or something. And Chris Neal, I think he can play on the team for another 2 years or so, and then he's probably going to retire. He's got a business here. It's fine.
He's on his last year of his contract this year.
So yeah.
He might not be coming back.
He might not re-sign. He might sign for like 1 more year or something. Just go out. That's it. I wish there was one thing I wish. I'm trying to think of it. I wish they had managed to trade Colin Greening, or buy out his contract. Either one of those could have worked, because that is such a bad contract, and he's taken up a roster spot that other prospects could take. That's a bit disappointing as far as I'm concerned. But no, I think the team is actually pretty fine right now. I'm glad they didn't sign any free agents because that doesn't really work all that much. And we have too many players as is.
Okay.
So
there's no free agents you want to sign? Because there's still a few out there right now.
Yeah, Ehrhoff and Franzen are still out there, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. If we manage to like either or both get rid of Jared Cowan and Chris Phillips, and then sign Franzen or Ehrhoff, I would think that would have been pretty good. I'm not sure how much money either of them are asking for. It might have been too much for the Senators because they have an internal cap and they're coming up on it, I think.
Hmm.
So maybe they might have just done the best they could.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of people out there. Sean Bergenheim is still out there. Brad Boyes. I'm actually surprised Brad Boyes is still unsigned.
Yeah, he's a solid player,
Yeah.
though we don't really have any room for him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think they came out of this offseason looking pretty good because there's nothing they did that was dumb, and they didn't make any possible risky moves.
Okay. So is there anything else you want them to do, whether it be, on management side, on player side, or whatever?
Um, I kind of I'm kind of a bit concerned as to who will take over as GM
Okay.
because this is definitely Brian Murray's last year. He might
Mhm.
halfway through the year just say, "I'm calling it quits. I'm not gonna last as
Yeah.
long."
Because
I'm amazed he's still going. It's actually kind of amazing because
Hmm.
as far as we know, his cancer is probably gonna take him out. Like I thought it was gonna be the end of this year. So I'm wondering who's gonna take over. It might be assistant GM Pierre Dorion because he's been with the team for a good while and he's done some good things. I think he was the one that tried to offer Jared Cowan eight years at like 6 million or something. Or oh no, that might have been Tim Murray. Anyway, someone in the organization tried to do that, and that was laughable. I'd like that Jared Cowan turned that down. Anyway, I think Pierre Jordan will probably take over. I'm wondering when they might announce that. But I don't think there's anything I'm really worried about.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, I am wondering about what's going to happen with the assistant captain situation
Mm.
because at this point, I don't think Chris Phillips is going to play more than like half the year
They'll probably still keep it
because
with him and have maybe him switching it to rotating with him.
yeah, because that's what happened at the end of the year. Like going on a long streak, it was Turris and I think it was Ryan or yeah, Turris and Ryan were the assistants,
Okay.
and everyone seems to love them. I'm wondering if at some point they'll just say they're the assistants now. They've taken over that role. Or they might just do it. They might just keep it with Chris Phillips and Chris Neal out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
For last year, so you might as well.
Yeah.
Right. So.
I hope they retire.
Now
It's time, guys.
heading into this next season, what do you expect from it?
Oh, that's really hard to say because I don't think they're as bad as they were near the middle and beginning of the year, but they definitely are as good as they were at the end of the year. It's probably somewhere in between. As far as our division, um, Toronto is a miserable hellhole, and I'm loving it. Buffalo is better, but not a playoff team by any stretch of the imagination. They still have a lot of problems. Though they have a lot of new good players, and that's definitely promising. Um, Florida is in our division, I think, and they didn't really do very much. I'm not sure what they did this offseason.
They re-signed Yager. I think that's all we really covered when
Oh,
we did the Florida interview. That one was really quick, so.
yeah. Was Brad Boyd on their team?
Yeah, but he was not re-signed.
Yeah, so they pretty much stayed around the same. I'm not. I think they're gonna get better because they're a young team with a lot of good prospects.
Hmm.
Though
They
I
still haven't
think we're
re-signed Herbert. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Huberdeau.
Yeah, him.
Yeah,
They haven't re-signed him yet. He's one of their big name players.
that's interesting. They're going up on that. He's probably gonna make a lot of money because he's a good player.
Hmm.
Um, I think Florida and Ottawa are around the same because they're rebuilding teams. They have old goalies and really old players and a lot of really young players.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Ottawa might just be a bit better than them because I think we have overall better talented players.
Okay.
Though I don't watch them that much, so I don't know. Tampa Bay, they're unstoppable. Now they have Eric Condra, so
They're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the division. So
I think they're going to take the division this year
you think they're going to
because
take it
they
over
didn't
Montreal?
do. Oh yeah, I think so. Montreal is going to be, I think, second division because I think they got. I'm not sure if they got better, but I think they're more balanced and stable now
Mm-hmm.
because they have the best goaltender in the league, but
Yeah.
everything else is a bit of a little question mark. Like, how good is their offense? How good is their defense? It's hard to say. So I think they're starting to sort of come into their own. So I think they're going to take second. Boston? Oh, Boston.
Boston did things. We're not sure if those things are good, but they did things.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think they got better
Mm.
because they traded away Dougie
I
Hamilton. Lucic, I'm not sure if losing Lucic is going to affect them very much. They got Zach Ronaldo. I didn't. I think in between Florida, Boston, and Detroit's in Division Two, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Detroit, they're probably gonna be around the same. They're gonna make the playoffs. I don't know if they don't know how to do that. They're probably gonna go wild card spot. I think this Boston is on the outside looking in because they didn't make it last year and they didn't get better. Florida and Ottawa, they're gonna fight for the other wild card. I'm forgetting someone, aren't I? Because you have Tampa. I say Tampa first, Habs second.
Who isn't there?
Someone's got to take that third spot, though.
There's Bruins, Buffalo, who's going to be last. Wings.
No, I think Leafs are gonna be last.
Then there's the Wings, the Panthers, the Canadiens, Senators, Lightning, and then Leafs. I think you covered them all.
Really? Someone's gonna take that third spot, and I don't want to say it's Ottawa because I don't think they're gonna do it.
I can honestly see the top 3 being Lightning, Canadiens, then the Wings, and maybe Ottawa getting that wild card.
You might be right. The Wings are still a strong team. Some of their veteran players are coming up on age, like Datsuk. He's gonna take a turn down.
Mm-hmm.
Zetterberg, he's gonna be around the same. Their goaltending is weird though. I'm not sure if that's gonna be okay.
Howard does Howard things.
And then they got Mrazek, who I'm not sure.
He's really young.
I think Wings fans might be a bit overconfident in him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they might be maybe underconfident in Howard, because Howard had a bad year, but he's had some good years. So
Howard is very consistent, but he's very averagely consistent, is what I see him as.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to affect them. It might be a problem if maybe neither of them can really step it up.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely going to make the playoffs. They might take third. I think it's going to be a close. I think third in the Atlantic and the wild card is going to be very close. And then Habs and Lightning are going to be miles ahead of them. But I think what's going to be is Lightning, Habs, I'm going to say Wings, Panthers, and I think the Sens might just steal a final wild card spot. If things go their way.
I think the Atlantic are taking both wild card?
I think so. Because the Metro right now is weird. They're in a sort of a shifting mode where some teams are really good and other teams are starting to get really bad. Like, who do you have in the Metro?
The Islanders, the Rangers, and the Penguins. They're 4 teams, and they're all.
The Penguins are so weird. I don't know what they're doing.
And then you throw in the Blue Jackets, who did some very good things this year, and the
That's
Flyers,
true.
who are very bubble teamish, with an amazing goaltender. And then you have the other 2 teams that can go away.
Yeah.
We have
Mason might just be able to get them into a wild card spot because he plays like a god.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know. Trust me, I know our Mace God is amazing.
It's pretty incredible. Like what a fair trade that was. Was it Mason for Brzgalov or not Brzgalov? Bobrovsky?
No, they were 2 separate trades. It was Mason for Leighton and a pick.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was basically Mason for nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
And then Bobrovsky was for 2 picks. 3 picks, but I think 1 got traded away actually.
That's a fine trade. Basically, most of being even on that.
And but the 2 picks for Bobrovsky were our top goaltending prospect and one of our top left wing prospects.
That's pretty good.
But it basically was very even in that sense.
Yeah,
still.
you both got 2 star goaltenders right there.
Yeah.
Though the Flyers, you might be able to sneak into a wild card spot.
I mean, when you have Giroux and Voracek kind of leading.
Oh yeah, Voracek.
But I don't see all the Atlantic taking the 2 wild cards. What I'm kind of trying to get at.
Because who do you have that's going to make it in the Metro? You got the Islanders.
Islanders, 100%, the Rangers, and then the Capitals. I see those 3 are 100% making.
And then who do you have? I think the Blue Jackets do.
The Penguins are kind of in that transitional phase where they might make it, they might not. They almost missed it this year.
True, they almost missed it.
The Blue Jackets also kind of on the way up.
The Blue Jackets are very good, I'd say, but someone's got to leave then. I guess the Panthers and the Sens are definitely on the outside then. Yeah. But I don't see the Sens missing it. I think they definitely make it.
The playoff format changed so much, and I don't really see how it's going to work.
Yeah, it's hard to analyze and see like who will definitely miss and who will definitely make it. Like one good team is definitely, maybe even 2 good teams are not going to make it again. Because right now the league is very polarized right now. We have a lot of really good teams and a lot of horrible teams. And there aren't as many teams in the middle anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Very split.
Yeah, I think the Sens next year are on the outside looking in, but I think they're going to make a wild card spot. Okay. Though that's as high as they're going to go, I think.
So, with your team's current kind of trajectory, do you see them being a cup contender in the next few years, and when would that be?
Fine few.
However many you kind of give it. Give us a number until how many years?
Cup contender, jeez.
Because it's completely different to be a playoff team and a cup contending team. 2 situations.
Well, I guess to be a cup contending team, I have to see them being better than a lot of other teams. Like I guess I'll measure it against like the Habs and Lightning. And at some point we're gonna have to be better than them. It's not next year. I don't see it being the year to that.
But do you guys have like prospects that you see that can help you kind of push you over the edge to a cup contending situation?
No, not really. We don't really have very many prospects. All our prospects moved up during the year we all got injured. All our prospects, we have a couple of like 21, 22, 23-year-olds on team. It's a pretty young team. I think it's one of the top 5 youngest in the league. And they're all going to get better. But I don't see them being better than the Habs, Lightning, Rangers, Islanders, anyone like that, simply because we don't have as many star talented players. Like we have Erik Karlsson, we have Kyle Turris, we have Bobby Ryan, but we don't have that forward guy that's gonna steal games. We have a lot of really good players, but we don't have any excellent star players on forward, I don't think. And until we get a guy like that, I don't really see us making it. It might be because we don't have cap space. Well, we do, but we can't afford them. But it's not going to happen it's not going to happen soon. But I definitely seen them within the next 4 years, let's say, making a strong push in the playoffs. Maybe even getting the conference finals if we get lucky.
Okay.
But no cup in the future, I don't think.
Okay. So for this coming season, are you guys buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Well, I don't see us being sellers. We don't really have anyone to sell. I mean, hey, who wants Colin Greening? It's not happening. I'm sure they wish it was. I think we're probably going to be buyers.
Okay.
But I don't really know if they're even going to go buy anyone. We might just go in the playoffs as we are, honestly.
Okay. And that's everything I have for you, unless Blake has something.
I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve.
Well, no, not really.
You disappoint me.
I'm all drained of discussion topics.
Oh. Yeah, I don't really have anything else, Dad. It's been a weird year.
I will say though, I'm glad James was able to join as quick as he was. Because I'll be honest, Dave, I was ready to fill time by jumping into a Big Brother discussion.
Oh gosh. I saved this show. You would have had to retire after that.
I don't think we could have continued with that.
It's something Dave and I are familiar with and could
Yeah.
have a long and engaging discussion in, it would be
In a
perfect.
hockey podcast.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
that would have been something.
well,
All right, anything else you want to talk about?
I would have been completely desperate for topics there while I was waiting on somebody, so as a last resort.
So I guess we'll do the outro bit now. So go ahead, Blake.
This has been the Wooden Ball Show. We'd like to thank Dave for joining us this afternoon discussing the Los Angeles Kings. You can find him on Twitter and Reddit. His usernames there are LA Kings Dave, and a additional tease, you can look up his NHL, his Kings stories on Last Word on Sports. He is a writer there.
Yes.
And James joined us this afternoon. You can find him on Reddit. His username there is Jamish the Great. And you can find him on Twitter at Hamsliod.
Lloyd, with Lloyd spelled differently for some reason.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dave, oh yes, Dave, a teaser for next week's teams.
Well, we kind of messed it up with the Senators being so early, but it looks like next week is supposed to be the Bruins and the Flames now.
Nice.
Yes.
That's gonna be fun having both of them on there.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Talk about the
okay.
intricacies of the Dougie Hamilton trade.
That'll be great. Yes, that'll be wonderful. So, for the Wooden Ball Show, you can. Oh wait. Oh, I'm slipping here. Oh, see, we haven't done an episode in a week, and already my mind's just going completely blank from how I do the outro here. Got to regroup.
This was a professional podcast.
Come on, Blake.
I'll be totally honest. This is our worst outro in the history of the Our Hockey Cast. Awesome. Okay. So for Our Hockey Cast, you can find us on Twitter. Our handle there is at Our Hockey Cast. You can find our Reddit page. Our address there is Our Hockey Cast. You can go to our website, ourhockeycast.com, where you can look for previous episodes of this show and of other shows. And you can do that same thing on our YouTube channel. Our address there is also Our HockeyCast. Oh yes, and for Dave Ball, you can find him on Twitter. His handle there is at Blinson1, and you can find him on Reddit. His username there is Blinson. For Blake, you can find me on Twitter. My handle there is at ChattonMyKirk, and you can find me on Reddit. My username there is BTownBomb. God, this is a terrible outro, guys. I'll be totally honest. And so, for Dave Ball, I am Blake Wood. This has been the Wooden Ball Show, and we are signing off.
Have a good night, everybody. Hit the wrong button.